Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Doble.
And I am Chris Clements.
And today
we have breaking news.
Yeah, this is
breaking news.
This is we're recording this on a Thursday. You'll probably hear this on a Monday.
Yeah.
But the House of Representatives has booted Representative Ilhan Omar from the Foreign Affairs Committee.
Imagine that.
Yeah. And that is the
following
impetus of that was because of her history of anti-Semitic comments and positions. And I think they felt like, hey, you can't be on foreign affairs where we deal with issues related to one of our closest ally in the Middle East if you are anti-Israel.
I read an article the other day that over 200 rabbis actually wrote to the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, and before that, Nancy Pelosi, requesting her ouster. So this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone.
Yeah.
In terms of how this was going to play out from the beginning. And it's a razor-thin margin for the Republicans to oust her, but that's what seems like it's going to happen. On the heels of several other ousters from the House Intelligence Committee.
Right. And the Intelligence Committee doesn't require a vote of the House because that's a speaker-designated committee. And Speaker McCarthy said to Eric Swalwell and to Adam Schiff, bye-bye.
You're out.
You're not going to be on the committee.
And yet the Democrats still put their names up for nomination.
Well, and I think
that's a little bit different in that, we actually have, longstanding data and understanding of what these two were doing on the Intelligence Committee that was seriously jeopardizing national security.
Sure. I mean, Schiff was just blatantly lying.
He was a leak master.
Fabricating. Right.
He was leaking anything he could leak from that committee, classified or otherwise, he was doing.
Yeah.
And lying blatantly to the press, lying blatantly to whoever would listen. And then Eric Swalwell from the great state of California went a little bit farther.
We had a relationship with a Chinese spy.
Had a relationship with a Chinese spy, which he's never denied. But Ilhan Omar, it has more to do with her comments or actions surrounding the state of Israel and her anti-Semitism.
It's being framed as payback for when the Democrats ousted Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar, Arizonan, from their committees for extreme comments that they made. And so this is a little tit for tat. Now, I think the ouster of Omar is different because there's a caveat that says, well, she can appeal this ouster to the ethics committee, and there's a chance that she can get herself back on, which they did not give that option to Gosar or Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, I can't imagine that goes anywhere.
I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll wait and see.
You never know. But yeah, this is something that Kevin McCarthy said that he was going to do. He had promised those who finally came around to his side that he would do this, and he's lived up to that promise, whether you agree with it or not. When it comes to Swalwell and Pencilneck, the outrage is rather faint, I think. I mean, people seem to be trying to create this false outrage that, this is just horrible. But when you look at the record, and I heard a congressman yesterday say, well, if they're so concerned about Swalwell and they really want to keep him on the committee, then release the FBI report. Yeah. Declassify it.
Right.
Declassify the FBI report, let everybody see.
To show that there really isn't anything there.
There really isn't anything there. And if that's the case, I would be happy to vote for him along with some other Republicans. But of course, the president won't do that. Yeah. Because there is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot there.
Right.
And this was a Chinese communist spy. Her name was Christine Fang, or Fang Fang.
Fang Fang?
Fang Fang. Who actually had a lot of different relationships with several Democratic folks throughout the Fruita Plain. And then once the FBI opened an investigation,
he was the highest level, right?
Yeah, he was the highest
'Cause
level.
she
And
had councilmen
she
and
actually
state
placed
legislators.
an intern in his office and had a relationship with him for several months, if not longer. So once the FBI opened that investigation, she very curiously disappeared.
Yeah.
Back.
Or was she disappeared?
She went back to China.
Oh, okay.
They know that for a fact. And then from there, who knows?
Then she got disappeared.
Yes, most likely. It's pretty bizarre.
Speaking of McCarthy,
Yes.
he met with President Biden to talk about this debt ceiling issue,
Last night.
and it was this morning.
Was it this morning? I thought it was
Yeah.
yesterday
Yeah.
evening. Okay.
It was this morning, I think. But McCarthy came out of the meeting saying he didn't think it could have gone any better, and he feels like he and the president are on a good first step. Now, the White House then put out, information that said, we're not negotiating. We expect to, we'll talk about spending cuts, but not under the auspices of raising the debt ceiling. So we'll see how this goes. Obviously, the markets have responded well. If there's a response to this, the markets are up. So they're definitely not fearful of default. And, I think it'll be interesting to see what do the markets do if we get to the brink, which will come
Sometime in June
or July,
is what they're saying.
right? Is when that really, really hits the, when kind of conventional wisdom says that's when we're really, really.
Well, and
Out of it.
sadly, this is the only type of leverage that Kevin McCarthy has at this point is the debt ceiling.
Yeah.
Because the ability to affect the budget went out the window with the Senate and their vote to
Right.
the vote on the
Continuing
budget
resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Or the omnibus. I
the
guess I should
omnibus versus a continuing resolution, which
Right.
if they had done that and just extended current funding through February, which is what was recommended, which is what McCarthy wanted, he'd have a lot more leverage over the president.
say. Right.
He had a lot more power. And Minority Leader McConnell kind of clipped his wings on that one.
Yes, he did.
He could have held up that. He could have demanded a CR, and that would have been the end of it.
Right. Well, and this all comes at an interesting time because we've got State of the Union on the 7th, Tuesday the 7th.
And we've got everybody in Washington, singing Kumbaya this morning at the National Prayer
Right.
Breakfast.
So,
And I read through the president's remarks, very, quite decent. But but we'll see if that togetherness and brotherly love has any power next week.
when we do State of the Union, obviously he's going to harangue the Republicans about giving him a clean debt ceiling increase. There's going to be, I'm sure, talk about, well, maybe there will. I mean, the question on the police reform as a result of these stuff that happened in Memphis, which is horrific.
Absolutely horrific.
The president has basically said, I've done everything I can by executive order. It's up to you guys, meaning Congress, to pass something. And, the George Floyd Policing Reform Act or whatever
Which is
it was
basically trying to nationalize our police force. I don't know if that's going to fly.
well, not now, not in the House for sure. We're in a totally different dynamic. There is, it'll be interesting to see what he says and how Republicans in the House react, and if there is any movement on that. And I think Tim Scott, senator from South Carolina, who has been a part of that reform effort, maybe he can restart those discussions.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see. But what else do you think we'll hear from the president in the State of the Union?
Well, I think there'll be we'll hear a lot about Ukraine and Ukraine funding. Hopefully we'll hear something about China and Taiwan. And it's his opportunity to send a clear message to China because the saber rattling is already occurring. And in fact, you had a general in at the Pentagon issue a memo last week. I can't remember his last name, but issue a memo to his troops to say prepare for war in 2025 with China. So that is something that we need to understand is a possibility, and with a, that China's going to try to push that button. I hate to use that word button, but when it comes to China, but they feel that Taiwan is strategically their own, and if they can get a hold of those chip manufacturers there in Taiwan to improve their own military readiness and capabilities, that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the land, has nothing to do with the people, has everything to do with the technology.
Right.
And everything to do with their military prowess, which, although extensive, is not technologically advanced.
Right. Well, and it's speaking of technology, so that's another thing we're going to hear from the president is his bragging about the CHIPS Act and all the manufacturing it's creating, the Inflation Reduction Act.
And all the inflation it's creating.
Well, it's creating inflation, but it also is so it's going to get more expensive than they expected, because everyone's talked about the tax credit for electric vehicles for individuals who, if they're under a certain threshold.
Sure.
What they haven't been talking about is the tax credit for battery manufacturing to big companies. And this is going to, when they forecast the budget on the cost of this tax credit, Congressional Budget Office forecasted that it'd be about $30 or $40 billion.
Yeah.
And now, based on what announcements have been made by companies and how much battery production that they're putting into the pipeline, it's going to be closer to $100 billion.
Really?
Or more.
But who's going to buy all those cars?
I don't know. I think demand's going up.
At 60, 70, 80,000 bucks a pop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still a giveaway to
it's industrial
the upper
policy.
echelon.
It's industrial policy. And so what happens is you might have a dearth of batteries all of a sudden, no consumers to buy them. And then you've got tax credits for batteries, tax credits for cars, and only a certain amount of people are going to take advantage of that.
Right.
Who can put a charging station in their home, or who don't live in rural areas. If you live in an urban area, like you have a Tesla and you drive it around town, and you might have taken it on a long trip once or twice, but for people who live up in North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, or anywhere else.
If you live in rural Arizona, it doesn't make
rural
sense.
Arizona,
Because,
it makes
and I'll give you an example.
no sense.
So yes, I have a Tesla.
Yes, you do.
I went to
and to be clear, I have a gas guzzling GMC
That's right.
Sierra, which I love.
When my aunt passed away, she was from Thatcher, and I drove to her funeral. There was no place.
You took the Tesla.
I took the Tesla. I didn't have much choice. And I got to Thatcher because there was supposedly a charging station in Superior, which actually was like basically plugging into the wall because it was so slow. I was going to be late to the funeral if I stayed to charge it all. And so I just decided I'm just going to go to the funeral and figure it out from there. And what I had to do is I had to drive down to Sierra Vista.
Oh, my.
To charge and then drive back to Phoenix.
Oh, my
So I had
gosh.
to go 2 hours out of my way. Well, closer to 3 in order to get home. So, yeah, it's not great for rural America. And we'll see what happens. And the other thing is,
well, and then what they will say is, well, but we're investing in infrastructure, and part of that infrastructure plan is all these charging stations from across the fruited plain. But the problem with industrial policy like that is that there are unintended consequences, and the laws of supply and demand are still in force, and until you solve the supply issue, and on many levels, you're not going to have a lot of demand, and also the capacity issue. You're not going to have a lot of demand, and the majority of people who buy the large, we said this on this podcast last week, the large big trucks and rely on the internal combustion engine, are folks in rural America. Mm-hmm. And what you're talking about, like you said, it just hasn't hit rural America yet as a source of demand.
Yeah, and it may at some point. But the problem is that it's not that your car is $7,500 cheaper. It's that you still have to pay that amount. You're going to get that off your taxes the next year. So the average American might be able to buy the car if it was literally $7,500 cheaper because of the tax credit. But if they have to wait for that to be taken off their taxes for a year, there's a lot of people that leaves behind. Well, so this tax credit is not everything is crazy. What it is it's basically a giveaway to
wealthy Americans. Absolutely, who can pay for it and take advantage of it. And install the 200-volt charging stations in their home and do the whole nine.
And guess what? That tax credit wasn't retroactive.
Yeah,
I didn't get one for my Tesla.
Nope.
So,
no.
Oh well.
And I'd rather just have lower gas prices.
Well, I don't disagree.
And I'm grateful that GM is investing $1 billion in new V8 engines because they're recognizing it's not going to go away.
It's not going away as quick as people think. And I think that California is probably going to have to rethink what Gavin Newsom has done, because I think is it 2030?
2035?
No more.
No
more gas.
Yeah.
Purchase, or can't sell a gas engine in the state of California. I don't know how that works.
So if I'm a dealer, do I set up at Quartzsite?
Probably.
Yuma?
Yeah.
I'm going to go buy my big truck and bring it back.
On the other side of Blythe?
Yeah.
On this side.
I don't know how that works. But listen, 10 years is a long time, obviously. A lot can happen. Technology can change. Speaking with many of my dealer friends, I mean, they actually believe that the whole electric car craze is a fallacy. They believe hydrogen is really the promise of the car industry. That is,
speaking of hydrogen,
that is actually what they're planning for, and that's not something that the folks pushing industrial policy upon us are talking about.
Which is interesting. Have you watched that movie Glass Onion something? Knives Out or something?
Knives Out? No, I'm familiar with it.
Oh my gosh, you've got to watch it.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. That's
with Daniel Craig, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
and
James Bond. Who died in the last movie, I'm just going to say.
It is
ridiculous.
It is a fantastic movie. And hydrogen is a key component.
Is it?
Of that storyline.
Yeah.
Which has a very interesting ending, I'll just say.
Yeah, when I was meeting
no spoilers.
I was meeting with a dealer friend of mine, and they're having to comply with all sorts of pie in the sky ideas from GM and whomever. But if you look at the foreign car companies, they might have an electric vehicle here and there, but they're up in the ante in terms of their investments in gas vehicles.
Yeah,
and Toyota, and others, and he really imparted upon me that everything that he has seen points to hydrogen. That is the most efficient, most accessible.
So the idea is that electric is going to be a little bit of a bridge then? Or just a blip?
I mean, the idea that we talked about just in general was it's everything. There should be an everything approach.
Like our energy policy, all of the above.
Energy policy should be everything. Car policy should be everything. If you want a V8, truck because you haul things and you need a V8 truck and the battery powered isn't sufficient, you need a V8 truck. If hydrogen power comes online in a more opportune fashion, then that will pave a way for other customers. In terms of distribution companies, we made a huge investment when I was CEO of Golden Eagle in compressed natural gas, because natural gas is plentiful and clean, and in terms of power and longevity, there's no difference.
Interesting.
No difference with those engines. It's actually, they're better than electric, to be honest with you. So this idea that we're gonna funnel everybody into one power source as part of a national industrial policy is ridiculous.
Yeah. Interesting. Well,
that's the rant.
That's the rant. It's all the time we have.
That's all the time we have.
It's good. We can be all over the place. The tangents are good.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on the State of the Union. We'll be talking about that next week.
We'll see if he
after
gets through
happens.
it.
He'll get through it.
How many narcotics do you think it's going to take?
It might take a lot, but he'll get through it. He always ends up. This is what I say to people: on the big stuff, he always comes through. The debates, State of the Union last year, State of the Union this year. I think he'll be fine.
Okay. All right. If you say so.
I think so. I don't know so, but I think so.
Yeah, just don't ask him any questions.
Well, there won't be question and answers afterwards.
No Q&A.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.